this is Bea on the Balearic Yacht Show. We have today Glenn from Motor Yacht Bava and Mark from Sailing Yacht Red Dragon. We are going to talk about the Balearic Yacht destination, as we will be speaking about cruising in the Balearics, and how is your testimonials about how you feel sailing in the Balearics.
Okay, Glenn, would you want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I've often sort of said about the Balearics as a cruising destination, it provides you so many different opportunities, depending on what your clients and what your guests might prefer to do. You've got 3 beautiful islands that have got their own unique topography and geography, but the ambience in each and every island is different. So if you have guests that like to party, nightlife, experience the high end of European entertainment, Ibiza's your island. If you have guests who are more interested in cultural experiences, mountains, beaches, city life, Mallorca's a great opportunity. And then if you've got individuals who are more interested in doing things that are a little bit offbeat, you have Menorca as an option. And between all 3 islands, you've literally got, it's just a hop across from one to the next. And I've always found that diversity in the islands great options for our guests. We run a private yacht, and our owners really like the destination, but it depends on what mood they're in, where we go to. And as Mark will attest to, there's so many different wonderful anchorages that offer so many different aspects of the things that you look for in yachting, whether it be finding nice restaurants or beautiful beaches or secluded bays or simply just protection from the weather. I think it really gives you so many different options. And as an operator, it's a very, very well-structured place to go, because you've got a big city. It's a big metropolitan area in Mallorca, which then you can use as a central base and then project further afield with the boat, depending on what your guest preferences are. So it really just leaves you with many, many options. And it's certainly not overcrowded. I mean, there's always somewhere to go where you can find your own peaceful anchorage. So.
Yeah, I'll agree completely with Glenn. The other thing, obviously, being a sailboat captain, is for us, there's always somewhere to go sailing. The sailing here is amazing. You've got the south end of the island, you get the southerlies coming in, you get the flat seas, you get some great sailing. And again, with the anchorages, there's always somewhere to go away from the weather. So you can be somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you can be in the middle of all the fun and games, but there's always somewhere to hide. But for us, the sailing here is amazing. I mean, the west coast of Mallorca's got to be some of the best sailing on the planet. It's beautiful topography. The bays are stunning. The mountain range, the activities going on around them. I mean, you really couldn't ask for a better place for a sailboat.
You've been both quite familiar with the islands, and you've been based here for a long time. What's the limitations that you find when cruising the Balearics, and about regulations or anchoring? Can you tell us about your experience? Yeah,
I think probably we both run similar sized vessels, sort of in the over 50-meter mark. And we struggle a little bit with the protection of the grass, which I fully understand is a very important part of looking after the environment, but it does make it quite difficult in some of the prime spots to anchor. And the bays are not huge. So certain areas you've got to be quite careful, because you've got to try and tuck in, but you've also got to respect the other vessels that are around. So you can't tuck in too far with a big vessel, because you take up the whole bay and nobody else can have a chance to get in and enjoy it. I don't know if you find the same.
Yeah, I think there's been a movement in recent years to identify the Posidonia grass species as being a really important habitat for the reproduction of fish species and the various benefits that it brings to the ecology of the ocean. And they've identified that in the last number of years that there's a very healthy population of Posidonia around the islands. There's a very limited number of sandy areas, which is the preference for the natural environment to drop your anchor in the sandy areas. But also what you find is the local authorities are very helpful, along with the agencies, in identifying. There's really nice satellite maps now. And although if you look at it from a macro perspective, it looks like there's very, very few anchorages, if you know your way around and you can identify certain bays that have more sand, for instance, Estranc is an area where you can get many yachts in there, and you're not encumbering the Posidonia species because there's plenty of sandy areas to anchor. But then there's other really picturesque parts of the island that you can't get so close to because there's not so many sandy spots. So it depends a little bit on on the concentration of yachts. And we cruised around here this year and we didn't find it too much of a problem because obviously there was less boats on the water as a function of the COVID situation. But all in all, I think it's a good move. I think we probably need to move towards some buoyage as well, because there's areas that people really want to be. And one of the ways that they've dealt with that in other parts of the world is they set out an array of mooring buoys, which gives you peace of mind that you can tie onto these things and stay in the places that you want to be without upsetting the ecology.
Just on that point as well, it also actually brings in a good financial point as well, because we're all happy to spend money to stay on a buoy overnight. And it brings in a lot of money into their community. I think Sardinia is a prime example of this, that they buoyed off quite a few of the key areas. And they're expensive, those buoys, but they're full every night because people understand that that's what you need to do. And we all as yachtsmen are quite environmentalists, so we're happy to pay the money to help, look after the environment and look after the seabed and make sure that we're not spoiling it for the next generation.
That's for sure a very good point. We from the agency try to help you, as you know, with crew and guest embarking, disembarking. So let's talk about the other regulations. How do you find the Balearics when it comes to helping your crew and your guest to come on board, to disembark, etc., etc.?
I think from my side, again, we're a private vessel. There really is nowhere easier. The services, you can pretty much get everything you need. The airport is very close. There is flights everywhere. It's easy for the private jets to come in. There's access to all the island. I mean, really, there's nowhere in, let's say, Mallorca particularly, there's nowhere more than an hour away from the airport. So for us as running complicated logistics with people coming and going, it's a very easy island to manage and have guests go backwards and forwards. So I really enjoy cruising here, particularly for that reason. Logistics is very easy. There's pretty much everything you want within an hour, 2 hours away of wherever you are, which makes a massive difference for us.
I think we can probably identify in any industry that there's a greater level of bureaucracy developing over the years, and it's really for different reasons: protecting the environment, ensuring that the countries that we're visiting benefit from our presence, and we're not just going in there and using the space and moving on. One of the challenges that I've had in recent years, as you know, because I've spoken to you about these things, is even though we're in one particular government area, there's different protocols operated between different major ports. Ibiza, I find, more and more complicated nowadays because of the declarations that you have to do for your guests and your crew and the various passport details that they're demanding. And I find that a little bit challenging because it's not consistent across the Balearics. That said, I think with an acceptance that we are moving further into a more regulated industry, because it certainly flags up as a significant industry in the Balearics and globally, I think there needs to be checks and balances and controls. And I think certainly with the agency help, because it's not one of these things that you can actually negotiate, navigate on your own as a captain these days. I think in the past you could fly by the seat of your pants and just pull up and effectively, without even having to make a declaration, because it wasn't as you were travelling into European. I think nowadays there's a need to actually identify which boats are in the area for record keeping as much as anything else, but also so that we can monitor the concentration of vessels, where they prefer to be. The port entrances, for instance, nowadays are all regulated, and you require pilots over 500 tonnes. I'm not sure what the limitations are, but more or less anything over 500 tonnes requires a port pilot for entry, which is good because they allow you to have a better understanding of the port facilities, movements within the port. It increases the safety. It also is a way of recording entrances and passages of yachts in the area. So, like I say, I've begrudgingly accepted that there's greater regulation, but it's not unique to yachting. It's across the board in all industries, and I think yachting is experiencing that as well. One thing I would say, and I think would be a nice evolution, for want of a better description, is to have a standardised port entry throughout the Mediterranean region, because each and every port facility you go to, they're asking you for the same information, yet it's in a different format. And so you're providing this information, and each and every time as an operator you go into a port, you have to make a declaration, whether it be a crew list or for instance, your last ports of call or whatever. I think it'd be a real easy thing, IMO regulations, anti-pollution, all those sorts of things. If you could standardise that, certainly even across the Balearics, it'd make our operational capabilities much more simple and less complicated than they are at the moment.
Could we say that we meet the luxury standards that your guests require as well?
Yeah,
for provisioning, for all the things that your guests would ask?
Yeah, I think the options are definitely there. And then it's also very easy to get stuff flown in from anywhere in the world. So I think because the airport is such an active airport, it's pretty easy to get things in. So yeah, it's definitely one of the top destinations in the Mediterranean.
I mean, if you speak from a global perspective, and we travel remote as you have done, when you're sitting around in places like the Bahamas or the Maldives or the Seychelles, logistics becomes incredibly difficult, albeit it's available, it's very expensive, and you have to make specific requests and have charter flights bring certain products in. The Balearics is really simple because you've got a big city, you've got an international airport, or a number of international airports, and it's a major travel hub throughout Europe. So it's not difficult if you need something within 24 hours to have it here. But that said, I mean, Mallorca in general as a central hub, Ibiza and Menorca as feeders off that central hub, it's really easy to get most things, even from an engineering perspective. Most of our engineering supplies and bits and pieces are available here on the island. If not, they're available within 24 hours from Greater Europe. Food-wise, I think, still to this day, Mercado Olivar remains one of my favourite fresh fruit and veg markets and fish markets on the planet. And I've travelled to many places, and you know how passionate I am about food. I still love walking around that place, and the selection of food you've got available is second to none. Obviously, there's a Spanish emphasis on it, which is normal, but you really can find most things. There's massive numbers of Italians on the island. There's a big French influence, there's an Arab influence, so you've got a really nice mix of different culinary preferences on the island, which translates into the supplies being available.
And these are markets that you can take guests into. It's actually an experience for them. The chef takes them in, they can choose their food, the fresh fish, all that sort of side of it. So it's such another really nice thing. It's not too far away, it's easy to get to. There's a lot of destinations we go to where getting the food is not actually an interesting thing. It comes in a van, it comes to the dock, and you pick it up. Whereas here with the markets and the shops, these are places that guests actually want to go and visit, which is a big thing. For a lot of them, food is a huge part of the day-to-day being on a yacht. And I think you're probably the same.
Without question, it's number one.
So if they can go to the market and with the chef and actually choose some of the food they're eating, it's a big part of the experience.
Fantastic.
And the markets in Palma are spectacular.
What other suggestions would you make to your guest when you're around the Balearics?
I think the restaurants here are second to none. The choices, everything from super trendy city restaurants to the beautiful mountain restaurants to pizza places to paella places to just the variety is enormous. You can do a full summer here, not eat in the same restaurant twice, and just choose everything. So I think that's again back into the food program. That's a huge thing that the Balearics have, and it's just a joy. And us guys who live here, it's also a big part of our sort of day to day is eating out. Who wants to eat at home when all this is here? It's incredible.
I think, aside from the food, because Mark's obviously covered that very well, our guests are so passionate about food, and being able to offer them local cuisine done locally is a real plus. But in addition to that, depending on what the demographics of your guests are, you've got, for me, I like golf, so I'll talk about the golf courses. I love the mountains. I love, Mark talked about the west coast of Mallorca, and it's just this incredible cliff face that stretches the whole length of the island that is just, it's breathtaking when you're cruising close to it. I mean, our owners commented this year when we passed through there in July, just how incredibly beautiful it was, and that they've never really had the benefit of seeing it up close and personal, because on the occasions that they've passed through, they've sort of bypassed it because they've other intentions of going elsewhere in the Mediterranean. And it was almost to the point of being shocked how beautiful it was when we visited 3 or 4 anchorages on the north coast. In fact, we bumped into Mark on Red Dragon up in...
I think we're the only 2 big yachts around. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But I think going on that, what Glenn's just saying is also, you can be sitting on the west coast having done an incredible hike that you probably couldn't do better anywhere. And then within 5 hours, you can be in Ibiza on a full-on nightclubbing night. So the variety is there, which is such a wonderful thing for these guys. Because as Glenn says, you have a different demographics on board. You have old people, young people, and you can actually please everybody with what the islands offer quite comfortably.
Let's talk about the other side of that about the Balearic destination as a yacht, the refitting. How's your experience here when refitting and doing works on the yacht?
Well, I think let's start with the positive first. So we're both STP fans, spend a lot of time there. They do, for us, which are well managed and well looked after vessels, it's a great place to get our work done. I think the level of subcontractors here is second to none. So any kind of work, no matter how complicated, you can get most of it done here. And again, from my side, being a sailboat, this is the place to be. You know, we have the best riggers, we have the best facilities, the best place organized to do big sailboat refits. So, you know, we have awkward undershape. So the way the travel lift works very well for us. And, you know, STP are super organized for our side of it. So we're huge fans of it. And it's, and it particularly works well that we're allowed to manage our own refits, which when you're doing the constant refitting like we do, like these guys do, it makes a huge difference that we're not beholden to particular subcontractors that a shipyard chooses for us. It's a big thing for us.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with Mark. I mean, I think our operational structure is very similar in that we're self-managed. I rarely go to a shipyard and say, look, this is my job list, get it done. We tend to micromanage our yard periods, and having the facilities of STP is very beneficial for us because they provide you with in-water workspace, plus they give you hard stand workspace. They've got quite a significant, I think it's the largest one in Europe, the 1,000-ton travel lift, which gives them a great flexibility for lifting motor yachts and sailboats alike, up to about 60 metres, I believe. And they've got the hard stand facilities there, which allows us then to set up our workshop with containers and the various other contractors based on the work list that we have, and then we manage our program based on our preferences for contractors. Oftentimes when you go to an established shipyard, you are defaulted towards their chosen particular preferred contractors, whereas we're at liberty to choose who we like. That's a dynamic process because sometimes you find that organisations that you used previously maybe don't come to the party as much as you'd expect them, or they're too busy. Oftentimes when you get the big boats come into an area, the really big, you know, the 60, 70, 80 metre plus boats, they suck down a lot of the workforce. I think the Balearics has got a massive potential here for the yards. One thing I think which is lacking a little bit is a really strong apprenticeship program. I think there's massive employment opportunities for the younger generation on this island to work within the yachting industry, but not working on the boats as we do, but working within the service. All the technology, all the heavy engineering, all of the finer detail stuff like the upholstery and the various bits and pieces like this can all be done by trade skills that are learnt here on the island. And for my part, I find that the employers of the tradesmen struggle to get the work skills from the workforce because there's no seemingly no strong apprenticeship program for the yachting industry, and I think it's a massive growth opportunity. And as I said, I mean, we like using the contractors here, but worst case scenario is if you can't find someone to do the work you've got because it's specialised, you can always fly them in from Northern Europe. And Palma being the hub that it is for the tourism industry, there's always regular flights. So that's one of the things that we can always fall back to as a backstop.
I think I just want to say on what Glenn's saying about the apprentice thing. Majority of the really good companies are not Spanish owned. They're owned by foreigners who are specialists. They've come in from the big shipyards. They've set up down here, and with the apprenticeship scheme that should be set up, it means that the next generation should be Spanish owned.
They get a feeder.
Yeah. And the government
like
should
a training program.
Yeah, the government should really be seeing that this is, you know, you can't get this skill set anywhere else. You know, the engineering, as you say, the high-end upholstery, all the different nuances that this industry brings that no other industry really sees. If the government really did see this and see how much it could benefit the young people and help, you know, I know that all these companies would be super keen to take on youngsters and train them up and be the next generation of business owners. You know.
Would you recommend to do the exemption as an advantage to your feeding program? Do you think that it's easy to do it? Do you find limitations when you do TPA, for example?
The TPA exemption. Look, I'll start, I guess. I personally really like the program, the TPA, which is a temporary import for work purposes, for improvements to the vessel. There's a few logistics required. You have to clear out of European waters after completing the TPA. But from a cost savings perspective, you're talking about 20-odd%. Now, my feeling on that is, as I've been running VAWA for a number of years, I know what our annual budget is pretty much from year to year, and I work on understanding that we do have a TPA exemption. So If I didn't have that TPA exemption, I'd have to allocate probably another 20% on top of our annual maintenance budget. The only complication is that you have to clear out of the country, which is not a complication for us at all because we often do anyway. And I think from a financial management perspective, and obviously we use Evolution for our TPA, I find that it's a really nice structured way of identifying a yard period as opposed to all the other regular operations throughout the year. So it gives you a boundary between start and finish of a yard period, and it gives you something to actually focus on when you're budgeting, and you can actually work through that process with your work lists and all the contractors that are involved. You can allocate the funds that you think are available to a certain project. And if anything, the TPA gives you a little bit more bang for your buck because you can spend what you save on the EVA on further improving your vessel. And that's the way I look at it. You know, it's an opportunity to spend the budget that we'd had allocated, but with a little bit more bang for your buck.
But I agree 100%. The other thing, of course, is that when you're coming into a proper size refit, and vessels of our size are looking 2, 3, 4 million a winter. When you're looking at all the shipyards, you never just say, well, I'm going to go to STP because it's closest. You check the shipyards in Europe and you go, well, this is what they're quoting, this is what they're quoting, this is what they're quoting. And the TPA suddenly gives us around about a 20% discount, which suddenly makes it very difficult to even think about going to another shipyard.
Much more competitive.
Yeah, so it's a great way of bringing vessels into the Balearics. I mean, the mainland do it as well, but I always feel that here is a better variety of people who work in the industry, and you can get more done here. But I think TPA is a fantastic thing that the Spanish do.
You spoke about the training program for young people, Spanish young people. What other recommendations would you throw away to a government to improve the Balearics?
Well, I think probably, again, let's just talking about the refit stuff. I know that the like STP example are making it quite tricky for other companies to come in that are not Spanish. But I think we need to get those specialist people in because that's what we need. But maybe they do a way of saying, well, you can come in and work in STP, but you have to do 2 apprentices, or you have to bring in a certain number of local kids to come in and assist and help. And I think that would be better than just trying to make them pay money to come in and work in Spain. Would be probably a useful way of doing it and looking after the future of the industry here.
Yeah, I think everyone within the yachting industry identifies what a massive fiscal injection it is to the Balearic Islands. I mean, these yachts, and you only have to look at the port at the moment. It's the end of the season. The place is full. All the marinas are full. The shipyards are full, and there's lots of work going on. And as Mark correctly identifies, you know, a vessel of our size could easily go into a yard period of 4 to 5 months and have a budget of somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 million euros, depending on the jobs that you're doing. From a training perspective, I guess I asked the question because coming from Australia, we have a very strong, there's almost this one or the other option between when you leave school, you go to university or you do a trade. And the trade could be cooking, it could be carpentry, it could be electrician, it could be a plumber. Within the marine industry, there's a massive, great big kaleidoscope of different opportunities available, whether it be IT, programming, telecommunications, electronics, fine cabinetry, furniture making. There's so many different trades available. And I often see business owners crying out for young guys to teach their trade. And it's, you know, you imagine, sitting here in Mallorca, you've got the Palma Cathedral, which took 300 and something years to build, okay? There's a massive trade skill set that went into the building that place. And it's a monument to the trade skills of those people. I don't know if we even have those trade skills to build such a cathedral nowadays, because we've lost the ability to pass on the skills from the elderly, skilled individuals to the younger. We often hear in the news about youth unemployment crisis in Mallorca. For me, this is a big fix, a massive fix that could resolve a lot of the youth unemployment, but also give them hope. And I think what we need government officials to actually have a look at the structure, the potential earning capacity, and also see what they can do to aid the business owners to bring apprentices in without too much encumbrance through the labour laws, but also allow them to engage them, incentivise them and train them into a new skill set. Because as Mark correctly pointed out, these are the business owners of the future. And you do come across young, skilled technicians, tradesmen, crew members who have all the ambition, but they don't have the structure of the training program in order to push them in the right direction. So it's really just about nurturing them through into the system. And I think everyone can benefit. The industry, the business owners, and also the economy, plus the youth unemployment situation, gives hope to the people who live on the island.
I mean, even the marinas. In England, we have the same. We're a massive apprentice for the marinas, for that sort of side. So every marina you go to is crawling with youngsters who are learning the trade. And it's not costing the marina a fortune. It's a program that works both ways. And here we don't have this. You know, you see the marinas are usually staffed by older guys and ladies, and that's sort of fine. But where's the youth? You need to bring in that knowledge. You know, running a marina with these kind of vessels is quite complicated. Even just being the dock boy is, you need to know quite a lot. You've got to be skilled, and that skill's got to come from somewhere. And it's the marinas are not taking the kids on because they want to take on the shore hands because it costs them a lot of money. So they need to have something to bring in the next generation of dock guys and dock managers, and you know, this is what brings all the money to the country.
Both of you have mentioned the north coast of Mallorca, but what's your favorite place? Just to finish, what would you recommend most?
I bet it's both going to be very, very similar, aren't they?
Oh, it's really hard to look past Sa Foradada as just a wonderful stop. I love the place both from land and from sea. I love dropping anchor there. You've got the beautiful surrounds. You've got Sa Foradada itself and that beautiful paella restaurant. I mean, I took our guests up there this year in July. We couldn't get into the restaurant because it was booked out. It was so busy. But we decided to go there just for an aperitif and had a beer and sat there, and they just couldn't believe how beautiful it was. When I'm anchored there, I walk to the top in the morning and walk back down again. And when I'm not anchored there, I'll take my daughter to the top and we'll walk down to the restaurant and back up again. So, look, it's right in the middle of the North Coast. It's beautiful. It's got the elements of the North Coast. It's got the isolation, yet it's got a beautiful little local restaurant. And it's just got the topography, which is just extraordinary.
Yeah, I think between there and Dea, probably my two favourite. I love being tucked right into Dea where the little restaurants are, and you've got a little bit of activity, and you can hear people on the beach, and there's swimmers around, and again, you've got this stunning backdrop, you know, with not just of, you know, trees and mountains, but beautiful properties, and so you've got a real mixture of everything. So I think I'm with you, between those two have got to be the most amazing, you know, drop-dead gorgeous spots. But to be honest, going also around to Estrenc and that kind of, you know, the southeast is, you know, just stunning. The water is, it's Caribbean style water. It's beautiful beaches. You know, you've got lovely view, and you can sort of see the mountains over in the distance, and you can see Cabrera, and you know, that also is another absolute favorite. We love going down there as well.
Well, I want to thank you both very much for meeting me here to speak about the Balearics, and I want to thank you all for watching us, and I hope you enjoyed this short cut, and thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Bea.
Yeah,
it's always a pleasure catching up, and to do it in front of the cameras is a bit of fun just for a change.
Thank you.
Thank you.